welcome. My name's Lucy Winkett. I'm the rector here at St James's Picadilly, which is an enormous privilege. This building has been here since 1684 and has held the prayers and the hopes and the griefs and the hopes, as I said, of generations of Londoners and way beyond London as well. So we're in a very extraordinary place. And the architecture is Christopher Wren's, and he wanted clear glass. And this, by way of segue into our conversation today, the clear glass is designed so that the church can see the world and the world can see the church. The two are not separate. So we're not withdrawn away into some sort of holy huddle that only acceptable people are allowed into. Whenever I'm taking services here, I can see the buses on Piccadilly, and because I have a slightly warped sense of humour, I sometimes am here, it's all going on, I think, oh, it's like Piccadilly Circus around here. Then I realise it really is. So today we're absolutely delighted to welcome our artist, Lovelace, and we have Cole Harrell as well. We will have a conversation between us about this artwork. We're delighted, Cole, that you've been able to join us as well as one of the sponsors of this commission with your husband, Tai Heng Cheng, who is also here. Tai, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. So why have we done this? Why did we write to you, Che? That's the really key question. We realized probably about 3 or 4 years ago now that there was an anniversary coming of the baptism of a remarkable young man called Quobna Ottobah Cugoano. And aged 15, he stood at that font, the same font, although it wasn't in that position, carved by Grinling Gibbons. He stood at that font and was baptized on a Friday, 20th of August, 1773. So we realized that there was a significant anniversary coming, and that the story of Ottobah Cugoano and his words and his challenge really against the transatlantic chattel slave trade was not as well known as some of his other fellow abolitionists, notably William Wilberforce and Olaudah Equiano. So we started to do some research and realized that this was a very significant figure who deserved to be much better known and for his story to be much more widely told. So we engaged a curator, Echo Eschen, and we're sorry, Echo gives his apologies. He had to be on a plane to the United States this morning. But Echo Eschen worked with us here at the church, and we wanted to commission a piece of art. And we had a group of us look at a number of artists, and Che, I have to say, we just thought, that's it. We looked at your work, and it was so it was an intuitive decision, but it was so vibrant and had such depth and purpose to it that we really wanted to commission you. So my first question really, and we'll have a conversation as we go along, but my first question really is to you, Che. Can you tell us about your own practice as an artist, first of all? And then I'll ask you later on about this particular commission, but can you just tell us a little bit about your own art and your own practice?
Thanks, Lucy, and thanks, Cole, for being here, and thank you for everybody coming here today. This is a bit heady for me being here talking today, but I'm going to do my best. And of course, this is a joyous moment for all of us, a celebration of kind of intersection of stories coming together. So yeah, this is really an important moment. I just wanted to say that for me, and I've taken it very seriously, but from a joyous place, from a place of not overthinking it, and just sort of trusting myself and trusting everybody around me. And it's led to this moment. So, I would say that my practice has always been an embrace of humanity and the spaces around me. I think that's hopefully what you guys saw, a sense of optimism, but also a sense of the sort of depth of emotion of human beings, you know. I think my work always can be melancholic, but in an optimistic way, in a way that is always about moving forward. And I think that is really important to say, because I think that's the place that I work from. Whether I'm painting the landscape, whether I'm painting people, it's a kind of, there's an optimism about living and about life, affirming life, if you would, and, you know, whatever that means to someone. So yeah, over the last 10 years, my work has, I never really earlier on worked from a place where I made a lot of colorful things. A lot of people who know me for a long time would know that I sort of resisted being overly colorful in my early years, because I guess one doesn't want to be too easily read as a Caribbean artist through just the fact that you use color. But I think by restraining myself from color and understanding other things about making art, when I did start to use color, there was an outpouring, you know, there was a kind of like coming home. And I did feel that it was very emotional. And that happened close to about 10 years ago, you know, when I was already in my early 40s, you know. So this has been a long journey, you know. I've taken my time and like trying not to jump ahead of myself. I mean, I hope this makes sense in terms of talking about my practice, but I think it's important to know, you know, what my background is. Yeah, and now there's this sort of celebration of the things we do, the places that we visit, nature. Intimate spaces also appear in my paintings, still lives, moments that are quiet. I think there's a kind of fervor for living and for seeing things around me that I respond to. It's almost like I want to embrace all these things, you know. So I hope I have a long life so I can kind of tackle things, all the different things that I would like to.
There's a lot more you want to do.
Yeah, but I've sort of made put down a kind of template of the things that I work with, you know, which is the human body, the landscape, and the intimate spaces.
So tell us the story of receiving this commission. It's a story of her. It's a fantastic story. So I think we wrote to you, and I think we emailed it to you, and you saw it on your phone.
I got it I got the invitation to do the commission via an email from Tommaso, my art dealer and good friend here in London. And I was, you know, thankfully these days we get our emails on phone. And I was actually driving up to Matura, which is the village where I grew up, to gather mud for a celebration we call Juve in Trinidad, which is the opening day of Carnival. And I've been very involved in that event. I find it a very amazing event. I've always been quite touched, quite soulful. Where we put mud onto ourselves early in the morning, and we see the sun come up, going through the streets with music and with friends, and then we put color on ourselves. So I've been a part of this Juve celebration. Juve is literally translated opening day, jour ouvert, from the French word. So anyway, I was on the way up to Matura to get mud, and I read this, you know, like partially at a stop sign. I read part of the the letter, and I was like, oh. And, you know, Tommaso's heading was, this looks interesting. And I read it, and I was like, wow, this is like St. James Church. This is a church in London. And, you know, by the time I drove up, I didn't look at the whole thing, and I read the whole thing through. I mean, I was quite touched, you know. I really did, you know, find it quite moving. And your letter. Because I guess for someone to see something in what you do in that way, you know, is quite different to somebody say, hey, you make nice paintings or something, you know. This was sort of a bigger conversation. So yeah, but that very day, while we were taking out the mud, and after we took the mud out, you know, I was with old friends from Matura, you know, village folk. And we took the mud out and we went, there was a river close by, and they were actually washing off from taking the mud out. which is the same mud we're going to have this celebration with. And I looked over and I was walking over, and this is after having read this invitation letter. And I saw, these guys washing off. And I said, oh my God, something good is at work here. Because this is the first panel right here, So I took some pictures and I mentally took in the moment as well. And that became the start of the sort of circular movement of the 4 panels, which I then did. And I knew in a sense at that moment that I wanted to do it, because I sent a reply maybe a day or so after, but I knew at that moment that I would take this on, even though I was nervous about the time, and maybe it was a bit short for what I normally would work on a painting for.
And the story of Quobna Ottobah Cugoano, I think you hadn't known the story before, but what is the connection for you in terms of this anniversary that we're trying to mark today?
I mean, the thing is that I did not know who Ottobah Cugoano was, and I found that very surprising. My dad is a writer called Lovelace, and he's very much about, he understands, I think, quite intimately the African experience in the New World, history, current affairs, everything. And I even asked him, and he said, no, I don't know who it is. It's strange, So I found that surprising. I knew William Wilberforce, for example, because we studied the abolition movement. So honestly, Lucy, it's been a process of kind of coming to terms with not knowing him, but starting to get to know him. And I must say that during the course of me making the paintings, I have thought about him. I have kind of, evoked his presence in some way. Because it was a tough journey, as with for any slave, African, coming here or into the New World as a slave. So it was just very emotional thinking about him, because I wanted to evoke him. I wanted to think about his life, and then respond to that in my way, not to make a literal representation of, or an illustration of his life, but to respond and have a conversation with him and what he did. And with the church, and with you guys, and with the entire team, So in a sense, I don't want to get too long-winded about my connection with Cugoano, and say that I am discovering, I'm really honored to discover who he was, and to respond to him. It's all been very quick in a way. I hope this takes him into the future, and into the legacy that he, truly deserves.
And Cole, your involvement, I mean, it's brilliant that you've been able to make this happen with us and for us. But can you talk a little bit about how you see this as far as art commissions, perhaps even wider art commissions in churches, or the power of art to be able to tell this sort of story?
Sure. I definitely want to start by echoing Che's sense of gratitude. Thank you, Lucy, and you all for being here, for braving the rain and celebrating your work and Cugoano with us tonight. I'm from Texas originally, and I didn't come from an art family. However, my grandmother was a very, very beautiful landscape and Southern life painter, and she was deeply religious. I grew up Church of Christ in Texas, and as a child, she taught me 3 things. It was always to look, to listen, and to learn, right? And I was more into performing arts when I was young. I was an actor growing up. That was my career for 15, 20 years. And when I moved into visual arts, and now I'm a specialist in classical African art, but I do work with contemporary diaspora painters in New York. It's so exciting to take and translate that looking and that listening. And to your point earlier about really finding that human connection, that human element, right? In the classical work, in the contemporary work, in a space like this. It's been really fun to meet you all tonight, and as I've been asking you all the same question, which is, why this church? I'm new to London, so I'm obsessed with every beautiful piece of architecture here, right? But every one of you has communicated to me not only a sense of community in your parish here, but a sense of intellectual prowess that you find with Lucy and you find being here. And I love having your paintings now to think and to contemplate and to hopefully take Cugoano's legacy and his life's work into the future. And I think we can all learn from critical thinking, right? And where we have room to grow, what we learn, what we need to unlearn, relearn.
Che, you've talked very powerfully about the kind of, I don't want to misquote you, but something like the future-oriented
Yes.
trajectory of your work. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I think it comes from somewhere, in terms of my own feeling about living and life. You realize that, you make art. Sometimes you just make art because, you love it and you've started on this journey. But at some point you start to realize that it's coming from a deeper philosophy of how you live and who you are, and that then starts to shape a lot of your decisions that might be very nuanced in art, but that actually really is what people respond to and what you are responding to and working with. I thought it was quite exciting to be part of creating a space for healing, knowing that the journey has been, it's been a tough journey. It's good to have people who acknowledge that and to have a community that acknowledges that and to say, hey, how can we start to shape a better future in a sense, not to be cliched, but that's exactly what it is trying to look at possibilities in a different way, and to be optimistic about that. I know there's a lot of bad news in the world. I hear it. I don't like shield myself from it, but I kind of live in a place, and maybe that's why we attract each other as well. I want to attract the people who are moving forward and trying to, because I believe the world is going to change, and it's going to change for the better.
I think a lot, that's really, I'll bring you in, Cole, here as well, because I think a lot about churches as public sacred spaces where, and we talk a lot about time and eternity in a church. So there is something about, in this commission, it's the church also trying honestly to face up to its past, and not only its past, its present, but to have some effective hope for a better future. And being part of that kind of facing up to the fact that clearly, I was saying earlier today that Ottobah Cugoano wrote this explosive book, Thoughts and Sentiments on the Evil of Slavery. 167 people from this parish and this congregation helped to fund that book, so we're clearly sympathetic to the abolitionist cause. But we've done some research through Cornell Jackson, who's here, who's a former church warden, who's done some really amazing research for us here in this congregation about those who were benefiting from the transatlantic slave trade and were compensated at abolition and the amount that they were compensated. So it was highly mixed. There were 167 people putting their money behind an abolitionist tract at the same time as significant numbers of people sitting in the pews who were clearly benefiting from the transatlantic slave trade. So try to be part of facing up to that honestly as the church. I mean, how do you react to that sort of movement? Because it is past, but it's definitely here in the present, because we're nowhere near where we need to be, but we're hoping for a better future. But there has to be that degree of honesty, right, in that narration. Che, then Cole first.
Definitely. I mean, it sort of makes me think of the power that art has to heal,
right,
and that's to make us think. And I feel like it's so easy in our busy life and the crazy of London to just walk through life and not stop and think. And I feel so excited that now as people pass through, as they come into the church, maybe as they see paintings in general or other art forms, it's taking that second to not just look at the work and think, oh, that's a beautiful piece of art, but look at the symbolism and start to ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And what this artist might be trying to communicate and what legacy that can leave behind, right? I feel it's those 50 seconds with a painting that can sometimes change someone's perspective, really change their life.
Yeah.
And to have the work in a church in particular, I think hopefully lends a realm for them to take their walls down and be present with themselves and their thoughts and hopefully their friends, and have a dialogue that leads to positive growth.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's you know, it's the fact that the paintings are part of a larger conversation that created the paintings. You know, I think that looking at things, and I that's the one thing about art that I find so, I've always liked about art, is that while it seems so sometimes unassuming, it's just there, it's quiet, it's a kind of window of reflection as well. Totally. And then because there's so many stories behind it, you know, there's so many narratives that are revealed about how something came into being. And I find that, like, you know, there's an extension of a dialogue which goes beyond looking at the painting, of course, and having the emotional response to it. And, you know, I like paintings also because, or art generally, because you can revisit it, you know, especially like visual. You can revisit, you could come back, you know. I am really thrilled to know that, you know, these paintings are going to be, you know, you guys are going to get to see it every day, you know, those of you who are in the church. Yeah. I'm not going to see it as often, but I will see it whenever I come to London. And every time it's going to be like a little bit different, you know. I'm also kind of discovering them in my own way because they happened so quickly in a way. But I think there's the fact that you can discover things slowly. Yes. And have a language which is slowly revealing to you. It slows you down, like you say, to think in a different way, but to also think about the story behind it, you know. So hopefully Cugoano, you know, the Caribbean, the interconnection between people, that becomes central in a project like this. And I feel like the paintings become, you know, a marker of that, and potentially a conduit for that. You know, that's how. I think that's the exciting thing about it for me. Yeah.
And I think you've so beautifully captured, and somebody who has professional interest in your work for a long time, and yay for color, more color, please. the joy that you've brought onto those canvases is so illuminating and so wonderful, and the depth of the canvases. But I really, really like that there's such a strong figural presence in these works, because it's really fun to watch humans working in these four canvases, and your style is so beautifully narrative. And it feels like I was talking earlier about flipping through the most beautiful coloring book, because your style with the four quadrants. I love having that journey in my brain as I'm walking through this space. I just think you really captured this idea so effectively and so efficiently.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's also, I suppose, I mean, this is a permanent commission, and it's certainly the first permanent commission for this church since the Second World War, when the church was restored, and there haven't been that many in its whole 340-year history. So, I mean, it's interesting to think about 50 years' time, 100 years' time, when no one here will be here, 150 years' time. We hope, just like this Grinning Gibbons, which we talk about a lot, or the architecture of Wren, that this will have, it will be telling its different story, I guess, in 150 years' time in this sort of historic building.
Yeah.
Think about looking back on this canvas when you were 90.
Exactly, yeah.
I'd be so, I don't know if I'll be here or not, hopefully not. But wouldn't it be cool to think about where you were in your life then?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And now?
Absolutely. I think the idea of a permanent, something up permanently is also very, you know, it's almost like, I think artists work very much in the present. You know, we kind of make things, and we don't realize that these things, sometimes you have to almost think about the fact that it's going to be here for a long time, and that, you know, it's going to be reflected on generally past your lifetime. And that's not to put pressure on you, but it's just for you to understand too that you're part of a conversation that goes beyond the moment, you know, even though we feel quite like in the moment, you know, when we're working, you know, and that's something that this, you know, makes it brings it into focus for me, you know, that this narthex of this church, and you can walk in. It's going to be here for a long time, and that this discussion that we're having here lives on. And yeah. Totally.
I just wondered, we've got sort of 5 minutes left. I just wondered if there were any kind of comments or questions from the floor. We don't have a microphone, but I can repeat. If you would just, yes, please.
Iconography that we are exposed to is white-centric. And I have grandchildren. And every time I go into any church, I often feel at some point very uncomfortable, because the images that we partake of, which suggest in a church goodness and purity and rightness, don't look anything like me or my grandchildren. And that bothers me as to the messages that they get. So in that case, thank you so much also for that, because this is so important, I believe. And the second was in relation to what you were saying about hope, because we cannot get to reconciliation without repair. And to repair, and so when you say about contribution, I think it's a huge contribution to repairing, and repairing usually means, and does mean, to try and repair what was wrong and what has been done wrong. And there's an awful lot of repairing to do. So I think it has a huge place in the whole reparations idea.
For the people at the back, may I just, if I can, there were 2 points. One is that in Anglican churches, the art in the iconography is very white-centric, and this isn't. And that's a good, sorry, I'm summarising just for the people at the back, but that's a good thing. And your second point was that this is a contribution to repairing, and there's a lot of repairing to be done, and the relationship between art and repairing and reparation is very key. And again, thank you to Che. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Well,
sorry, we'll just take one more comment at the front, please. Yes.
Elizabeth, about you, the state Singapore, the state, a boy from Ghana going to the Caribbean, becoming an African European in London, a Black Londoners, you from Trinidad. It's a transnational story of community and connection and becoming one. And it's me I'm working on trauma, the history of enslavement. It's such a beautiful moment. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oliver,
Honestly, watching your eyes sparkle was so beautiful just now.
You and Che were supposed to be on the Radio 4 this morning, and there was some economic story. I mean, how dare they? How dare they take us off? But you were just saying that it's a story of 4 continents with Ty and Cole and Che and London, and centred around this, as you called him, the boy from Ghana, who then got trafficked to the Caribbean and into London, and that there is some measure even in the fact that he has brought us. We're here because of him. Yes. He's brought us to this place and to this day. There's something, did you use the word healing? But it's something very beautiful about it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly, that's it. Thank you.
You have liberated Ottobah again. Sorry, Mariam, I don't want to paraphrase you. I daren't, but I'll have a go. You've liberated Ottobah again because there isn't the productivity, and the body that was owned by another has been freed in this painting. So, thank you.